Hebrews 11, verse 25 reads, He chose to be mistreated along with the people of God rather than to enjoy the pleasures of sin for a short time. Moses had easy access to a life filled with pleasure, comfort, and luxury. And yet, Moses chose to be mistreated along with the people of God rather than to enjoy the pleasures of sin for a short time. This is such an important lesson for us as Christians today. Sin often presents itself as pleasure. That is part of the temptation of sin. If there were no promised pleasure attached to sin, we would not be tempted. Moses recognized that pleasures of sin are temporary. Even if Moses had become ruler over all of Egypt, it would only have lasted so long. Moses would have enjoyed a season of comfort and privilege and power, but then it would have been all over and he would have ended up as some mummy in an Egyptian tomb instead of being a father deliverer of Israel. We need to remember that the pleasures of sin are fleeting. They are only for a moment, whereas God's pleasures are everlasting. As King David tells us in Psalm 16, verse 11, You have made known to me the path of life. You will fill me with joy in your presence, with eternal pleasures at your right hand. The worldly people take this attitude to enjoy the pleasures of sin by saying, You only live once, so go for all that you can enjoy. But it's not true. You live twice, and the Bible says your first life here on earth is but a breath compared to eternity. Faith recognizes that the pleasures of sin are only for a season. Verse 26 goes on to say, He regarded disgrace for the sake of Christ as of greater value than the treasures of Egypt because he was looking ahead to his reward. So faith is not distracted by worldly riches or wealth. How could Moses turn down fabulous treasures and riches of Egypt? He looked ahead to his reward, so by faith blocked out everything else and focused his attention completely on his reward to come. The word translated reward here in verse 26 is a word that means compensation or payment of wages due. God doesn't really owe us anything, but God has promised His rewards for faithfulness. Those rewards now become our wages due, not on the basis of merit, but on the basis of God's promise and grace. God is not unjust. He will pay you back for the good you have done for others, even if He is the one who helped you do it. Moses focused on the reward to come, and so he was not distracted by worldly riches or wealth. Now, just as with power and pleasure, there's nothing wrong with money in and of itself. But the love of money is the root of all evil, and money can become a trap and a snare when we are tempted to serve money rather than God. 1 Timothy 6 9 to 10. Whenever we go against God in order to gain power, pleasure, or riches, we are identifying with the world instead of with Christ, and we sin in the process. So, what does faith teach us? To refuse to identify with the world, no matter what the world offers. Are you willing to imbibe this relentless faith of Moses? Be blessed.